Thank you so much for talking to Voice of America.
Great to be with you. Thanks.
Could China subject to secondary sanction if Beijing provides Russia with the financial and material assistance?
The United States has been very clear, President Biden in his conversations with President Xi, Secretary Blinken in his conversations with the Chinese foreign minister, that China will pay a price if it is seen as assisting Russia, either providing it direct assistance, particularly military assistance, or assisting Russia in evading its sanctions. China knows very well the economic consequences that it could face if it's seen as helping Russia. And China itself is suffering because of the sanctions we have placed on Russia. And so we are hoping that the Chinese make the decision not to support Russia. They, of course, have talked about a relationship, the U.S.-China, or the China-Russia relationship is one that says, as quote unquote, no limits. That was the language of the joint statement that they released prior to the Olympics. But we're very watchful of what China is doing and made very clear to them the consequences of their actions if they choose to provide that kind of support to Russia.
So a secondary sanction is still on the table?
I don't want to get ahead of things in terms of what kind of consequences they would face, but I think they know quite well our capabilities.
Is Secretary's speech on China before or after the ASEAN summit?
Well, I don't want to get ahead of the Secretary's speech. He's of course, plays a very high priority on our strategy towards China, and we'll look forward to speaking to that in the coming weeks.
What is the U.S. approach to PRC? Can two countries work together after Russia's war in Ukraine?
Well, the U.S.-China relationship is a very complicated relationship. There are elements of it that are conflictual, clearly, where areas where the U.S. and China are going to fundamentally disagree. There are areas of that relationship that are competitive, and the United States welcomes the competition with China as long as we are playing by the same set of rules. And there are areas of the relationship that we think by necessity have to be cooperative. For example, on an issue like climate change, where we are not going to be able to address the consequences of a warming climate if the United States and China can't find a way to work together. Unfortunately, that's a dwindling space in terms of the cooperation space. So it's a very complex, multifaceted relationship. But when it comes to China's behavior in the international system and its willingness to undermine the rules-based order or bully its neighbors or try to create facts on the ground, or shall I say facts in the sea, in the South China Sea, or take Russia's side when it comes to the conflict in Ukraine, we've been very clear our position on China's behavior and the consequences China would face if it were to pursue such behavior.
As Washington is hosting a special summit with ASEAN in May, what is the U.S. pitch to ASEAN on Ukraine?
The ASEAN Special Summit, hosted here in Washington in a few weeks, will be a historic summit. It will be the first time that ASEAN leaders have been able to meet here in Washington. It will be the largest meeting of leaders here in Washington since before the pandemic. And our pitch to our ASEAN allies and friends is the same pitch we make to all of our allies and friends around the world. We see that there's a clear side that we all should be on against what Russia has been doing in Ukraine. We want ASEAN friends to stand with us when it comes to isolating and punishing Russia, and also doing whatever we can to support Ukraine. And that's a message that I carried personally a few weeks ago when I was in the Philippines and Vietnam, and I know that President Biden, Secretary Blinken, and others will carry at the summit in a few weeks.
Does the U.S. feel ASEAN is on the same page with the U.S. and showing solidarity?
We believe we have shown solidarity, and ASEAN friends, all of whom are very worried about the issues of sovereignty and territorial integrity and the ability of large countries to try to bully and perhaps use military force against smaller countries. These are all issues they fully understand. Many ASEAN countries have direct experience with that kind of behavior over the past several decades. So we find that they're very good partners, and clearly ASEAN countries have different relationships with Russia, different histories with Russia, and we fully understand that. So we are not going to have a one-size-fits-all answer, but we believe need to stand together when it comes to making clear to the world that Russia's behavior is completely unacceptable and there needs to be a price for it.